This conference will now be recorded.
All right, happy Monday. Today is Monday, November 16th. And as always, everything that we're going to be talking about today is for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended as any type of investment advice. So we got a bunch of stuff that's going on out there. A lot of our stocks we've been watching every day, giving us a few moves early today, but we got some new stuff out there. First thing I'm going to be looking at is this mRNA. So this is probably one of my all-time favorite stocks to trade. For the most part, unfortunately, in the past about a month or so, every other day there's been some good trades in it, but it really hasn't had that consistent volume. And obviously, over the past week or so, we saw a complete change of personality where we're just buying after buying after buying after buying, and then obviously we can see we gapped up over that 100. Now, keep in mind, 100 is a very hard level to be able to hold. It's not going to let me go all the way back in print, but I can go back over here and come back into this morning, and you can see there really isn't that much that's been put into the stock yet. Now, at the 102 level, you have a few ask prints, but just nothing near showing giving us a real show of hand, a real dominant market maker coming into the stock yet. But I was watching Monster Prints okay, so that very early when we were coming up to that 100 level that we had some big prints. Same with 104 and 15. Okay, perfect. So we have that buying that's sitting up above the 100 level. But again, that 100 level is going to be very, 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 very hard. That's very weird. I'm not sure where you guys are seeing. Can you give me a time on those? Because I think, well, I mean, I see what you're talking about, but in my on my prints, it did not come up as that. It came up as in between before 8 a.m. Okay, interesting. Just going back to this morning. Okay, but either way, we'll go based off of it. So we have 104, 105 aspirants, but like I said, still same. It's in exact game plan. 100 going to be a very hard level to hold, especially considering if you really look at it. I mean, technically, if you're looking at about 8 o'clock, and then or obviously early this morning, we're talking about into the hundreds. More than likely, we have not pulled back the amount that it really should, especially with this much of a move towards that upside. So continue to look at these riders. Obviously, 100 is going to be a huge, 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 huge level. So as of right this second, we're not getting a ton that's coming in during the consolidation, but overall, like I said, it's just such a hard level to hold. If we start to see selling in, we should expect a pretty big bar, especially with what you guys are talking about that earlier this morning at that 100 level. Then we should certainly expect a large pullback coming from what we saw. What we saw over the weekend and how it just gapped up like that. There's no real volume that's behind it. And then obviously, with that much buying, we're going to be expecting that pullback before we would continue to go. Now, I'm just going to tell you something based off of where we are now. You're talking about basically a $15 move, give or take. From what it closed on Friday, the amount of buying that we have, I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing keep going on the longer term side of things. But obviously, we're going to follow our rules. Huge prints at that 100. We're going to have to, because it's such a hard level to hold, such a big psychological level, we're going to have to look for the pullback underneath there and a substantial amount to actually take the number one trade. And then obviously, we're going to switch it up. And once we do get that trigger, we get that volume coming back in, we see that buying coming back in, we're going to be looking for it, obviously, to go above that 104 and 105 ask prints. Next thing looking at is SPCE. So we've traded this thing many times before. On average, only trades about $1.22, but you can see the volume is definitely going to be higher than what we normally would expect within this. On average, about 12 million. We already have almost 1.8 million coming into it. So 20, obviously, just such a huge, huge, huge level. I'm not a big fan of trading around it, and this is why. You can see even the selling that came in first, and you have the buying that came in almost immediately after at 742. Now, did we get the pull up that we needed from it? Technically, yes. So coming into that 20, we need to see something definitive, and we also need to see something big because the print personality is pretty substantial. I mean, you're looking at anywhere between about 4 to 6 prints that are coming into this. So has no problem giving bigger prints. We're going to need to see some real big ones as controlling prints coming in at one of these levels. 2050 really didn't give us much. You can see just a little bit of a mix. I mean, you have a little bit of buying underneath. We need something solid. We need something that's just definitive at one of our controlling prints. So overall, we're definitely gonna be expecting a bigger than range of $1.22, but first of all, we need that direction. Obviously, it's in a downward trend at the moment, but that doesn't mean anything if we don't continue to see that selling, and I'm not really getting anything that, once again, that 20 is a little bit mixed. So we need to see something more coming in there. We have SAVE. So SAVE is the greatest trading with volume at this moment. But if you look at some of the prints, it's actually trading very smoothly compared to a stock that really on average trades 91 cents. So the range is usually very, very small. But you can see even with no volume, it actually is pretty much following exactly what the prints have been showing. So coming up to that 22 level, you can see we have, a bunch of above the ask prints, below the bid prints that came in. And then this 22 stuck out a lot just because of the fact that, first of all, it's 8 o'clock on the dot. And if you look 22, I mean, that's a 46,000 shares. That's a big print. And if you look, it shows between the bid, but 44. So it's definitely looking like some longer term stuff up here, 22, that we're pulling back from off those ask prints. But overall, I just continue to see this selling coming in, which is telling us that if we continue to see that this isn't enough selling right here to tell us that it's going to be breaking 21. So we're going to really look around this orb line for it to come underneath. And then obviously we continue to keep seeing selling. We're going to break right below that before we even have a chance of getting back up at that 22. So as long as we continue to see this selling, we're going to be looking for it to basically gap fill. And then without that, if we get that buying that comes back in, we're going to be expecting it to go back towards those ask at 22. But just remember, there's some big prints there, so it's showing a little bit longer term. NCLH. So all the cruise lines are pretty much moving almost in the same exact way. It's just that NCLH had the best show of hands so far. And one of the things that I really do like about it is it happened at the highs. So 22.50, you can see these prints that came in. We had 22.49. It didn't technically leak over because it took a little bit of time, but based off of just the trading volume that's coming into this, it's very possible that during that execution, it really kind of was. So overall, I really like that buying. We can see that's obviously pulling back from there. You can see these selling riders that have been coming into it, and they're continuing 2180 area, 2170 level. So if we continue to get that, once again, 2150 is not going to hold any type of chance. But overall, the biggest market maker, the dominant market maker in the stock right now is definitely the ask prints at 2250. Huge psychological number, very hard to hold up above. You can see it broke underneath from there. Give or take, based off what we expect out of the stock, $1 is essentially enough for the pullback to come back in. So just watch out for that buying coming in. Obviously, overall looking for above that 2250, but that's going to take ride. We're going to need to see that buying start to come back in. Because remember, the reason that is pulling back is to actually build the position. We have not seen that really come in yet. So overall, still going to be looking for it to continue down if we keep getting this off-level selling. If we start seeing this buying start to, and not leak in, but kind of slowly be built in before we get into the open of the market, I wouldn't be shocked to just see a bar go right back up above that 2250. So another one that it's obviously we're looking for the above, but we need the buying to start coming in at the lower levels to tell us that it's time for us to really be able to back up above there. Once the market opens, we should see the move happen pretty quickly just because of how small the range really is. So it's going to have to utilize that high volume and high volatility moment of the beginning. Next thing looking at is ATHE. So this is going to be on our side list. And ATHE. Here we go. So the one thing that I really did like about it, so I didn't really see anything earlier from here that showed any real buying coming up to the 4. You can see the volume was pretty low. And obviously, we were talking about before 7 o'clock in the morning, it's going to be expected. But one of the things that I really liked is as we started to see this stock, come up above that 250 level, we saw a lot of real nice waxing that was coming in. And we kind of dove down, but it didn't break past where that waxing started. And then you could see the really, really high volume, which is going to have a hard time being able to sustain itself. But once the market opens and we kind of see that push, I would not be shocked to see this thing get, a real nice quick push up to the 3 level. That's where we're going to start because we do have a huge resistance point there. But even 350, it's just going to be a matter of really getting that off-level buying and that now type buying coming in. One of the things that I'm not a huge fan of either is that the trading volume has kind of stopped after we got these pushes, so it's not showing a ton of real new buying building coming within there. But overall, based off of what we seen so far and based off of what we have within the pattern, that's what my expectation is going to be a quick move coming back towards that upside. As long as we hold kind of that 250 area, it could go a little bit lower, but not much underneath 250 before we would just expect it to basically be done for the day. Next thing looking at is AMC. So this is not a huge mover. Obviously, on average, trades 39 cents, which is not very big. But based on what we see today, we're definitely going to be expecting a little bit of a difference. Okay, on average trades about 20 million shares. We already have 5.2 being traded coming into this morning. But again, the only thing is that when we come to the earlier, you can see this goes all the way back to 8 o'clock. There really isn't that great of buying. And if you see this 350 that came in afterwards, not the biggest fan, but we saw a little bit more buying, a little bit more selling, very, very mixed coming into here. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on it for something kind of new that stands out because this 350, once again, is just too mixed for us to really go on, especially with not having any buying that's high enough. But based off of everything that it has and its personality, definitely shows potential for kind of coming out of nowhere and breaking past that 350. And then CBAT is another one where they were shares are available earlier this morning. So hopefully, obviously, that you got those. Now coming down to the 750 level, you can see a little bit there. But again, the prints here, so we're starting from 830. Not a huge print personality, not a huge amount of buying. I haven't really seen since 8:30 any type of real buying coming into it. So even though, from the before there was more selling than anything else, you can see this print, this burst right here, and burst over the course of a minute or so is by far the biggest thing that I've seen stand out here. So I have to kind of go off of that right now. But because we don't really have controlling prints, we're going to have to wait to kind of see a little bit more. The fact that it's 750 is such a big psychological number, and you can see there's really not much going on there, tells us a lot. Kind of almost worries you a little bit about once the market opens, it kind of just dying out. But at the end of the day, we need to see something here at that 750 to really give us that indication. Otherwise, if we don't see anything at 750, we don't see any type of buying coming in, there's no reason for it to stay up here. We're going to end up seeing us come back down to pretty much right where we began, right around that 625 area. So we have a lot of potential out there. But again, we're just waiting on some real controlling prints, some real market makers going out there and showing us exactly what their intentions are. And besides, I guess, mRNA, and we're going based off of the prints that you guys saw at 104 and 105. And obviously at 102. Besides that, not really too many things have given that great a show of hand yet. So we've got to work with what we have. But once again, patience. It only takes that one burst of prints to decide what type of trade it is, and it only takes that one trade. All right, guys, anything else out there that Miss Steve CHC, let's see, side list, only one ask at 4. Okay, so it's got to ask at 4. Looks pretty good with the buying building up to that. But yeah, absolutely. Let's see why not. The only problem here, though, is that if I only had one ask at 4, the next move would probably be something to kind of get out unless we see some really heavy building. But overall, absolutely fits every category. All right, guys, so let's get ready for our morning. I will talk to everybody in the chat, and happy trading.